Pravara's wife. In Kashmir, there was once a rich and noble youth called Pravara. He started on a pilgrimage to see the world. Unfortunately, one day he fell into the hands of robbers who robbed him even of his clothes. Dressing himself in the discarded clothes of the robbers, Pravara walked many days without food or sleep and at last reached a strange city. It was night. Pravara was too proud to beg for food or shelter. No one offered him what he was ashamed to ask. He reached the king's stables near the city wall, found a pile nearby, and lay down on it. At once he was overcome with sleep. King Jaisena ruled this city. He had a charming and intelligent daughter called Kanchanavalli. On her attaining womanhood, the king stopped her studies and fixed up her marriage. The princess was not in favor of this marriage. She had always wanted to marry one who was her match in all respects. Rather than agree to this marriage, she wanted to run away from home, see the world, find a worthy man, and marry him. To run away from home, she needed help. The minister's son was her co student and a close friend of hers. So the princess secretly sent word to him instructing him to wait for her near the stables with a couple of horses that very night. The minister's son was ready to help, but he was prevented from doing so because his father insisted that he too should attend a dance performance which was arranged in the palace. This same performance helped the princess to escape. She pretended to have a headache. When the royal family was engrossed in the dance, she climbed down the city wall by the help of a chain and came to the stables. It was very dark and she thought it was the minister's son that was sleeping on the pile. She woke him up rudely, saying, "Get up. How can you sleep when there is so much to do? Go at once and bring 2 horses. We must be going." Pravara woke up heavy with sleep. He brought 2 horses from the stable. The princess got upon one of them and led the way, asking him to follow her on the other. They travelled all night without a stop. The princess wanted to be as far away from home as possible before daybreak. She thought she could explain things to her companion next morning. By morning, they arrived near a tank. Imagine the surprise of the princess when she turned to her companion and found that he was a total stranger. He looked more like a thief than anything else. She realized her mistake and felt like shedding tears. But there was no going back. Her father would order her to be killed mercilessly. The princess sat down on the ground and looked away from Pravara. Pravara did not attempt to speak to her. He broke a couple of twigs from a tree and threw one of them before her so that she could brush her teeth. In silence, they finished their ablutions, mounted their horses, and rode on till they came to a river. A ferry boat was about to cross the river. An aged woman was entreating the boatman to take her on the boat free of charge, and the boatman was insisting on payment. Since Pravara too had no money with him, he looked at his companion. The princess threw a gold coin at his feet. Pravara gave this coin to the boatman and told the old woman to come along. After crossing the river, the old lady thanked Pravara. She mistook the couple to be wife and husband and offered herself as a cook to them. All right, Granny, you can share our fate, Pravara told the imploring woman. By noon, they reached a city called Helanagar. They went to a chowdhury, had food, and rested there for the day. Next morning, Pravara went to the marketplace and offered to give the merchants daily predictions which would be profitable to them. A few merchants bought his predictions and he went back with some foodstuffs. The old woman cooked nice food and all the three ate it. The next day, more merchants bought Pravara's predictions for the day and they considered him a man of worth. Pravara had enough money now to take a house and live independently. Accidentally, one of the merchants one day found that Pravara was an expert in diamonds. He gave him a job on a decent monthly salary. Life was now very happy for the three of them. Only Granny wondered why the wife and husband never exchanged a single word. Being a wise old woman, she told herself, who can penetrate the mysteries of married life? One day, a trader from the south brought an extraordinary diamond to the king of the city and offered it for 1 crore rupees. The king desired to possess this beautiful gem, but he wanted to have the opinion of experts before paying such a huge price. So the diamond merchants of the place were called to the palace. They saw the diamond by turns and estimated its price variously from 75 lakhs to 2 crores. When it was Pravara's turn, he too examined the gem carefully and said, this diamond is worth exactly 1 rupee. Of course, that is the charge for cutting it. As for the material, it is utterly worthless. This was a terrible slap in the face for the trader from the south. His reputation was shattered. He shouted, You should not say such things without proving them. To prove what he said, Pravara dashed the diamond against an iron plate and it was shattered into 1,000 bits. The king was impressed by the wisdom of Pravara. That very day, he appointed him as one of his advisers. Pravara justified the king's choice by giving him wise counsel on several occasions. A short while later, the king's minister died, and Pravara was given the post as there was none else more suited for it. After Pravara became minister, his private affairs became subject of general gossip. One day, the royal washerwoman told the queen that the minister's wife was an uncommonly beautiful lady. The queen, in her turn, told this to the king. Pravara was a common man before he was made a minister. How could a common man have an uncommonly beautiful wife? This puzzled the king. Also, he wanted to see how beautiful his minister's wife really was. To satisfy his curiosity, the king devised a plan. One day, he invited the minister to dine with him. The queen herself was made to prepare the food and served it. Pravara understood the king's intention. He must do to the king what the king did to him. He could invite the king for dinner, but how could he ask a strange lady to prepare food and attend upon his guest? Not knowing what to do, Pravara went home that night and lay in his bed. When Granny told him to come for food, he said, I am not hungry. The princess guessed that something was troubling Pravara and that it concerned herself. She said to the old woman, tell him, Granny, that if there is anything to be done, it will be done. Why should he go without food and worry himself? Hearing these words, Pravara was greatly relieved. He sat before his meal and said, Granny, today the king gave me a dinner. It was prepared and served by the queen herself. Is it not proper that we return the king's hospitality? Tell him, Granny, said the princess, that I too can prepare and serve good dishes. I shall not lag behind the queen. Next day, the king was invited to dine at the minister's house. The princess prepared very good dishes. She served them to the king and went away. Before coming back for reserving, she changed her clothes, ornaments, and even her hairstyle so that the king believed that two different women attended upon him. The king went home and told his wife, our minister has two wives. Both are such beauties. The queen had a great desire to see them. So she suggested to the king, Ardhodaya is at hand. Let us invite our minister and his wives to accompany us that day to the sea. They too can take part in the ceremony of bathing couple. Accordingly, the king extended an invitation to his minister to accompany him to the sea with his wives on the Ardhodaya day. Pravara was now in a worse plight than before. Preparing and serving food to a guest was one thing, and taking part in the ceremony of bathing couples was another. How could he make such a request to the lady who was not his lawful wife? Pravara came home and lay down tormented by his problem. When the old lady came and called him to eat, he replied that he was not hungry. The princess said, "Ask him, Granny, how it is that he loses his appetite so frequently. Does he not know that those who helped him once can help him again if necessary? He who protects can order too. Is it not so?" Pravara stopped worrying and sat before his meal. He told Granny about the king's invitation. "Let him accept the invitation, Granny. Let 7 closed palanquins be ordered and 7 sets of clothing and jewelry got ready. Let them set up a tent with 7 entrances on the beach. Everything will be in order," the princess said. On the Ardhodaya day, 7 closed palanquins accompanied the minister's palanquin. Only one of them contained the princess Kanchanvalli. The 7 palanquins were set down behind the tent with 7 entrances. From the first entrance of the tent, the princess stepped forth and joined the minister on the beach. They tied their clothes together according to the custom and bathed together. Then the princess went back to the tent. Soon she came out of the second entrance, dressed and looking like a different person, and repeated the ceremony with the minister. She did this 7 times. The king and queen who were watching this thought that 7 different ladies came out of the tent and bathed with the minister. Each one of them was a great beauty. The next day, the queen sent 7 sets of gifts for the 7 wives of the minister through her maid and instructed her to find out the names of all the 7 ladies. The maid arrived at the minister's house and requested for an interview with the minister's wives. On instructions from the princess, Granny met the queen's maid and said, "I am afraid the queen made a mistake. The minister has 8 wives. One of them could not go to the sea because she was unwell. Their names are the same as those of the 8 wives of Lord Krishna. They avoid one another and you have to meet them one by one." The queen's maid ran back and returned with an extra gift. The princess came to her 8 times, each time in a different dress, and conversed with her each time in a different voice and accent. A few days later, the princess instigated Granny to serve food in excess while Pravara was eating. He protested to the old lady, "What is the matter with you today, Granny? Do you think that I have a bigger stomach today? Why are you serving me so much food?" "Tell him, Granny," said the princess mischievously, "that if he cannot eat all the food, there are others to finish off what he leaves over." Now Pravara understood how the young lady was disposed towards him. When the princess brought him pan after food, he asked her, When are we going to get married? She replied, I left home in order to find a husband worthy of me. In that very instant, God has presented you before me. But I was blind and mistook a gem for a glass bead. I followed you only out of helplessness. You never even looked at me. Can I hope to meet a nobleman? You were not aware of it, but in my mind, I have been your wife for a long time now. Pravara was very happy to hear this. He took the first opportunity of informing the king about his coming marriage. The king heard to the full story of Pravara's wife with unconcealed wonder and at last exclaimed, what an extraordinary woman! Thank you for listening.